living in San Francisco. She done moved from the other side of the planet over to our side now, so I'm grateful for that. um, and I'm trying to get her ideas into the Sony PlayStation Network. So if anybody's listening from Sony, follow this young lady. Talk to her, connect with her. I need her on Sony Network.
That's great. Thanks, Kevin.
Absolutely. Wow. So living in San Francisco and just a lot of changes in the last year, roughly give or take since we've last met. So when is the launch date?
Okay, well, I'll back up. Before I go to the launch date, I'll give a little bit of context. So,
Oh
what we're
yeah, that's
building
my bad.
is no, it's great. I love it. Just jump right in. Um, so, we are building a game. As Kevin mentioned, we're building a game. I am not on hands on the keyboard programming the game itself. So, we've got a team of developers who are much smarter, more qualified than I am. But where I'm really focusing is on leadership, strategy, and fundraising. And so I really come in having a decade of coaching background, having a master's in leadership and org development, being passionate about psychology and neuroscience and evolutionary biology. I'm really working with my co founder to encode a lot of these mechanics into the game. But you might be saying, oh, is this going to be like a really heavy intellectual game? Is it, is it self help? What is it? No, it's just fun. It's pure fun and play. We really feel that there's not enough play in the world. Thinking about when kids wake up in the morning and on a Saturday, it's like the world is your oyster. There's so many possibilities because you just get to play. And as we grow into adulthood, my co-founder actually said adulthood is not about maturity, it's about narrowing possibility. It's about we have this blue ocean of possibility, and how as we get older we start to narrow down and say this is the path I'm going to follow, this is what's expected of me, this is who I am as a person. And frankly, based on our own journeys of self awakening, of breaking through mental health issues, of self discovery, we've actually stumbled upon what we think the whole point of life is to play. It's to be, it's to live life. And so, what we're doing is we're encoding a game, one of the first of its kind, with AI companions in a gaming environment. So, when you think of the typical non player characters who are scripted, who are shallow and superficial, who are just repetitive based on, okay, go do this step in your quest, or here's the information that you need at this point. Now, think of having AI companions who are conversational, who can remember you, they can build relationships with you, they can go on the quest with you, they can follow your instructions. So now they become someone that you can actually play the game with, in addition to bringing your real friends into the game. So that's a big differentiator. It's something that's not really on the market yet.
Wow. Wow. And as you were talking about that, I was thinking about me playing Tom Clancy's Division 2. And
Mm,
you talking about, I don't play with people, but the last week or so I've been playing with people online, and it's been interesting. It's been very, very interesting. And it's almost like you have the other components, and those jokers, I mean, they are sneaky and everything else, but it's all about strategy. And with the right strategy, then you and your teammates can, overcome the challenges that
mm.
are within the game itself, right? That is presented to you, and even factor that into real life. Life is about overcoming challenges and learning. And you said to be, or it's about
Mm.
being, right? Which carries it to the next level, I think, of existence and meaning. And I'm a huge existential person. And if you look at the reason or the purpose of being and the purpose of meaning, well, what does that essentially entail? My goal is just to be in this moment, right? And enjoy it to the most part. The journey itself. It's not the destination. It's
Hmm.
not the fact that, you know, hey, I get to point Z because I went through A through, Y, right? No, it's what is happening at point A, point D, H, M,
Hmm.
N, P, T, R, what is happening at all of those points creates the person I am when I get to point Z.
Exactly. You've got it, Kevin. See, you've got it. This is amazing. Um, so yes, all of the above, because I think to your comment about the existing games out there, there are so many games out there that are about, shooting each other or stealing resources, and it's really, kind of that embodiment of dog eat dog world, right? We have to watch out for ourselves. And if we look at today, right, in our culture, many of us, most of us, I would argue, are chronically dysregulated, right? We're the media, the news, everyone around us, it's like this message that things are getting worse. We're spiraling into oblivion. Everyone's out to get you. You can't trust your neighbor. And it creates this sense of fear, right? We're in chronic fight or flight. We're not able to be at our best. We're not able to tap into all of our resources and our unique individual magic because we're busy trying to survive. And so imagine if instead of going into a game and perpetuating that dysregulation and having people shoot at you, making it even worse, imagine if you had a game where there's no violence, and the competition that we have fun, mini games where you can compete, you can win a little crown, there is some fun competition, but really your progression in the game is based all around you helping the community. So it's really flipping this idea of scarcity on its head, this idea that we need to take from others, and showing actually when I give, when I contribute to community, I actually receive a lot of joy. I receive a lot of power in the game. And imagine what would be possible, Kevin, if you had this game where you're exploring these possibilities of abundance and fun and play and creativity. Imagine what that would do for you in the real world when you go and live your daily life.
Hmm. It makes me think of the tools that, or the skills, the tools, whichever word you want to use. I don't like both. I don't like those using those terms, but it kind of fits. Um, but it's literally learning that and being able to apply it to the real world. I mean, think about, you know, think about when I think about emotional development and the stuff that you're talking about, I think about children when they are grow up in dysfunctional homes where they don't learn that stuff, where they don't learn
Hmm.
critical developmental skills to
Hmm.
help them overcome various challenges or stages throughout their development. And I know I'm going into Eric Erickson here with the psychosocial stages of development, but I think when I think about that and apply Eric Erickson to that idea, right? I think it really, I think, meshes well with the goals of the game that you and your team are developing.
Exactly. You've got it. It's really, I would say it's this notion of my co founder has about 30 years. I've got about 15 years of active self contemplation and self awakening. This idea of examining our childhood, understanding what lessons did we learn, what programs did we adopt. And I love the analogy of the operating system as we talk about software. This idea that most of us are truly walking around with software, these programs that were written by a toddler or a child. We're, as children, we're learning the world around us. We're learning what is our place in the world? How do we fit in? How do we belong? How do we earn love, respect, belonging, all of these things? And many of us, as you said, are raised in dysfunctional homes, not to any fault of our parents. I believe truly that our parents are doing the very best that they can. But because we don't value these types of conversations or these skills in the mainstream culture, it's very hard to break the cycle, because it's like being a fish swimming in the water and needing to wake up to the water that you're swimming in. And I think, especially if you don't know any different, if nothing ever challenges your mindset or your paradigm, it can be really hard to create that awareness. You just look around you and you say, this is just how it is because everybody I know is dysfunctional or behaving in this way. And so it's really about showing the adjacent possible. Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. That's the second time it's ever happened. One of the things that I typically like to focus on is how, nowadays that, the first thing that happens is when, children come up to people and say, hey, to the parents or grandparents, aunts, uncles, what have you, want to talk about things or process things. And it's like, Dr. Claudia Black, don't talk, don't tell, don't trust, type stuff. And it's like we shut that development piece off. And so, or we just hand them this big old thing right here, be like, here, just go on about your business. I don't want to talk to you, get out my damn hair type stuff. And, reality is something like that. I can get behind something like that because it's teaching them some form of emotional development, right? Like they're not
Mm,
being just blown off and say, just that and a third, right? Like they're getting some pieces to the puzzle that they need. Does that make sense?
absolutely. I mean, that's what we think of it as, like sprinkling seeds, because what we're building first and foremost is a fun game to play. This is not a therapy companion. This is not a self help app. This is really just a fun game to come and play, to have conversations with NPCs in a way that we've never been able to do before in video games, to explore these beautiful worlds, these dimensions. Our characters are super cute. So it's not about necessarily just the emotional development. If you're interested, if you're ready, if something resonates with you, take it. It's a seed that we're planting, that we're just kind of sowing these seeds. If you want to take something with you, absolutely go for it. And if you want to come and just play and have a place to rest and feel safe and be creative, then that's okay too. It doesn't have to be about self help or some big mission that you're on.
Hmm. Right, right. No, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. I love the mission behind it. I love the goals, the mindset behind it, and the work that goes into it. Because I think it's, if we can get behind those types of things, and I think that, you know, I think we can continue to meet the milestones that, let's say again, Eric Erickson, right? I'm choosing him because he's very popular with psychosocial development. If you think about the milestones he talks about, we can learn those things, continue to learn those things, and and again, that's just at the basics, right? The very basic of it all. We can achieve those milestones and start learn and even learn about potential other milestones, you know, in advance.
Absolutely. And I think it's a beautiful unfolding process. So, Kevin, I'm very curious. I'd love to maybe switch up the format a little bit and maybe pose some questions to you. And I think you do, I'll say, I think you do such a beautiful job of holding space, of getting people to open up about their history and their experiences. And you clearly have so much knowledge and wisdom yourself. So, I would love to unpack just a little bit about your story if you're game.
Go ahead.
Okay, amazing. So when you're talking about Eric Erickson and a lot of these thought leaders, can you pinpoint a specific experience or a moment where you became interested in these topics, or something wasn't working, or like what was your initiation onto this path?
So I was sitting in high school, 10th grade, and or 11th grade or whatever, 10th or 11th, I forget. And I think it was 10th. And the career counselor comes around and they do all of this stupid stuff, and you got to choose your potential classes and this, that, and the third that you want to do in college. And I didn't know nothing about it. And hell, I had just started smoking pot and real good at in the ninth and 10th grade. So, uh, but the word psychology stood out to me. I didn't know much about it, but I had an interest in it at that at that young of age. And so what got me interested wasn't that, right. Like as I sit back, as I sit back and reflect, I realize, looking back now, I had an interest in the field way before, right. Well, I had been prayed over, analyzed, cursed at, try to be scared straight, like all of these things, right? Nothing ever worked. I've had psychiatrists prescribe to me these damn pills, and they'll be like, "Here, just go home and take this. And, take this once a day or twice a day." And I go home, and I remember sitting on the edge of the damn couch or the bed. I think it'd be like staring at the damn clock, like, when is this thing going to work, right? But I didn't realize then that I was looking for an emotional change, a spiritual internal change,
Mm,
and it's that effect that is produced by whatever I put into my body, right? Um, I've had preachers lay hands on me, talk in tongues. I've had people talking in tongues to me. None of that stuff worked. None. What worked was, and this is where it all flipped and where I became interested. And I took the steps to go the path that I'm on now. I met a man, he told me my story. He taught me about me, but yet he never spoke to me about me and anything that I did. He shared my story with me that was his personal experiences, and I identified for the first time ever. I didn't have anybody,
mm,
this damn psychiatrist in Raleigh, giving me oh, you're bipolar, or you're just that and the third. And I got the crazy papers, just that and the third, right? You know, but reality is I'm not truly bipolar.
mm,
The psychiatrist didn't understand the difference between cocaine and meth use versus bipolar disorder. He didn't understand. But I identified with him. And to this day, I still look at him as my mentor, even though he relapsed. He's still my mentor, my original first initial mentor. I love and respect
mm.
him. And if this dude was not in prison, I'd call him right now and just BS with him. Um, and that's what started the path. That's what I became interested in, like, as far as like taking the concrete steps to do it. And I absolutely, have enjoyed every piece of it. I've been able to
Mm.
critique various theories, of, whether it be Sigmund Freud, Eric Erickson, been able to dig deep into it. And that was whether it's academia or even now, professionally. We talk about theories amongst ourselves, amongst colleagues, and it's very interesting to see how everybody's thought processes are.
Absolutely. I love that, Kevin. Thank you so much for sharing. I heard so much richness in what you were sharing that I think a lot of people can really resonate with, especially when it comes to feeling really unseen by, let's say, the Western medical industrial complex, this idea of, and again, it's for me, it's not coming from a place of judgment. It's understanding, oh, a lot of these people, the way that their success is measured is through diagnosis. It's the tool that they're given and they're taught to say, here's your book, the DSM, it's like match people up against this. And so feeling really unseen, especially when it was, here's just a pill to take, right? I think that our search for relief, our search for solution often drives us to say, I don't know what else to do, or maybe I want the quick fix. Maybe I'm thinking that it's going to work, like you said, staring at the clock, just like waiting, okay, when am I going to get better, when is this going to happen? And I really love that you're pulling forward this theme that even when things are maybe hard, we don't know what's going on, choosing that path of, you know, where are we interested? Let's follow that. Let's follow the curiosity. Let's go inward to understand what is it that we're really craving instead of continuously just taking things and putting them in our body or consuming them with our mind. Really having that opportunity to kind of create space is what I heard come through in that, and to feel so resonant with someone's story that they were sharing. I personally love that you still consider him a mentor, because I think that in today's culture, there's this idea that if someone relapses or if someone falls off or makes a different decision that you don't align with, that somehow negates all of the good that they've done in their life. And so I think your embodiment of really challenging that binary bias, that it's not all good or all bad, it's a spectrum, right? There's gray. People can do great things, people can do hard things, people can do harmful things. And it's really complex as we think about the human condition. So I really love that. Um, and it made me think about the influences that like we have in our lives, and not always like, especially when it comes to me, I'll say when it comes to the impact that I've had in the world, sometimes it's hard to know, right? We don't know how our words, how our actions are impacting people in that ripple effect outward, like the stone in the pond. We might feel the stone in the pond because that's our action, but we don't know those ripples outward. So I'd love to hear, and I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, so if it's hard to think of examples, that's totally fine. But when you think about people like that mentor who had a big influence on you, have you ever had experiences where maybe it was a light touch, some sort of acquaintance or an interaction, and that it had a really like meaningful impact on you? What was that like? Not someone that you were really close with, but someone that maybe in passing, or you just have one conversation and it really changed your perspective.
I've had multiple. I've had multiple, and I'm a pick on him. Uh, he's a medical doctor. Um, we were actually talking about politics one day. I'm not gonna say his name because I don't want anybody to sue him. I don't want him to sue me. I don't think he would do that ever. I got nothing but the utmost love and respect for him. He's an amazing dude. Like I've worked with him for about 2 years. Great dude, great guy, phenomenal guy. And we were talking about politics, and we were talking about the polarization, like how extreme society has gotten politically.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
we talked about like I'm gonna just go ahead and throw it out there how transgenderism and LGBTQ and the books being banned here, books not being banned here, books this, books that, and made a comment and it made me think because it's true, right? Like what he said was true. He said, we're so worried about what the book says and what this book says and that textbook says, but yet we can drag our damn children straight to church and let them hear about shit that's 10 times worse in the Bible. Does it really make sense?
Mm.
And that right there really opened my eyes up in more than one context that I could even begin to fathom because it's like, okay, let me take a step back. It's not even about politics anymore. It's not even about anything of that sort. I have to ask, what are we afraid of as a whole in society? That's like, the women's and African American rights, right? Back in the 60s. You got one side fighting dead set against African American women's rights. This side right here is pushing forward to just that and the third, right? What are we afraid of? Are we afraid of becoming less than and becoming not a or not being a part of and feeling unwhole, right? Because it really makes you think, and so that right there has impacted me in so many ways, that so more than one way. Because at the end of the day, we are each a human being. Uh, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, Chinese, Applejack, Hispanic, Asian, Native, uh, Russian, Ukraine, Israeli, uh, Taiwan. Doesn't matter which country, which race, whatever. Doesn't matter if you're male or
Mhm.
female. Doesn't matter if you're, you know, considered obese according to medical terminology. Doesn't matter if you're hyper. Doesn't matter if you're whatever. Right? We all deserve the same love and respect that we all want for
Mm.
ourselves. And so at the
Mm.
end of the day, I, as part of being part of the human race, am obligated to care for the next human being to the best of my
Mm.
ability, without regard to their ideals, to their political beliefs, to their religious ideologies, to anything of
Mm.
that sort. Um, and my job isn't to, let things separate. So somebody could have lied 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago to me. That's okay. They have a right to be
Mm.
wrong. I've been wrong hundreds,
Mm.
hundreds of times.
Mm.
The ultimate goal is, what am I doing to better that person, to help that person improve? Um, I've been forgiven by people who I should have never been forgiven by, Therefore, I need to
Mm,
continue to do the same thing. And so that doctor really was. I mean, he was passionate in his politics, very passionate. But when you question something like that, and the way he questioned it, it was like it really makes you think.
mm.
It's not even about politics anymore.
Yeah, it's I think that's such a beautiful thread that you brought forward, Kevin. Thank you for that. One, highlighting that you never know the impact that we're going to have on people just through our words, through our perspective, through our actions. So I think for me, what I hear in that is you being inspired to be incredibly mindful and intentional about that impact that you are having. What is the ripple that you're creating outward? I think there are a lot of people out there today who wouldn't necessarily identify as a victim, in the terminology of a victim, but I do think there are a lot of people out there who's a reserve and say, well, once I see that person do something, then I will turn around and I'll be kind or I'll be generous or whatever. But I'm waiting to see that other person go first. And I think what you've highlighted, Kevin, is this beautiful point of we all need to be willing to go first. We all need to be willing to extend across whatever divide, whatever chasm culture, beliefs, ideology have created, to recognize that we are much more similar than we are different. And it's up to each single one of us to extend across that divide, to be willing to say, I don't know you, I don't understand your beliefs, and that's okay. I'm still going to love you because you're a fellow human being. And I think that is such a beautiful, beautiful message. So thank you for bringing that forward. That's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of those situations that it's like you said, I can't wait for, this person to be nice or this person to forgive or this person to do this or do this person to do that. I don't wait for my employer to give me a paycheck and then I show up to work.
Mm,
Most employers, most
mm,
people are behind, I think, a week or 2 weeks or something like that, or maybe
mm-hmm.
you get paid once a month. Maybe you get paid once a month, so you're a month behind on your check. I show up, I do a job, then I get paid, right?
Mm.
I have to do my part first. And if I look at it from a macro perspective, it's the same thing in society. I don't wait for society to say, "Hey, just that and a third." No, no, I take the bull by the horns. And what is my job in society as a human being? Is to love
Mm.
and care for another person, regardless of. Doesn't matter. Homeless, black, white, Chinese, Applejack, old, young, doesn't matter.
I really love that, and I'm really curious to get your perspective on this as well. When it comes to some of the conversations I've heard, especially from people who, let's say, identify as a white male, right? There's oftentimes this fear, and you ask it, like, what are you afraid of? And so I'm curious from your perspective, what is the root motivation of staying divided, of not wanting to extend that love and care towards other human beings? Where does that come from? Just go ahead and solve some of humanity's biggest problems, Kevin. No big
Right.
deal.
Right.
No pressure.
Where where does this divide come from? When I think about, okay, I'm gonna choose from my experiences, right? And this is gonna be really a major self-disclosure on social media, but that's okay too, because I don't mind it. Like it'll show change and growth. So I used to be a huge hatred of Muslims in the Islamic belief system. Huge, huge. And I
Mm,
and I guess because of the 9/11 era, I grew up during the 9/11 era,
mm.
and I experienced that directly. Like it was I remember fifth grade sitting in Mr. Bates' class and watching the news and all that, and talking about Muslim men and from the Middle East, and so always had this deep hatred, right, from you know or sixth grade, not fifth grade, but sixth grade, from I think I was like 11, 12 years old, joined the military because of it, right? Part of the reason was joining the military. Part of my joining the military was due to some of that too.
Mm,
Um, and for me, I think it was where it changed was my I was in a cultural course um in my master's program in grad school. I also did some cultural studies in my undergrad, but it was my grad school had to do a cultural immersion project. And part of the project was take a religion or take a culture that you have the least about amount of knowledge about, least amount of experience about, and go in there, immerse yourself in that culture, immerse yourself in the practices and all of that.
wow.
And I said, well, shoot, okay, cool. Islam, here goes. Uh, and I was so scared. I was so scared of putting myself there because it's like, what if these people try to shame me or whatever? And it was a beautiful experience. I went to the mosque, engaged in some of their
Mm,
prayer. I didn't understand what they were saying sometimes, but I'd follow through, did what they did. If they were praying, I got down and did whatever they did and went through the motions and had to interview people. Went and helped them set up for some type of field day or whatever. Had that experience. I've um, got fed. I mean, they literally took care of me the whole time I was there.
mm,
Like just it was an amazing, beautiful experience, and it showed me that biases the biases, our perceptions, and our fears can hold us back from coming together as a whole. And it's like, what am I
mm,
afraid of? Well, it's the fear of the unknown. I think now there's
mm,
multiple pieces here. I'm giving you from my experience. It'll be fear of the unknown. Okay, why am I afraid to allow a woman to do this? Because I'm afraid of you know maybe her getting ahead of me, maybe losing something that doesn't even belong to me. What am I
mm,
afraid of this? Or what about this Chinese person am I afraid of? Them outsmarting me, right? What am I afraid of this? What am I afraid of? Yada, yada, yada. And reality is, fear is one of the biggest, strongest, ugliest, meanest emotions, and it can control every piece of our lives if we allow it. Fear is
mhm,
absolutely natural and normal and part of human development, and where we are required to experience it. But I can't let fear and all every emotion dictate every single decision in my life. Therefore, today, I don't have a hatred against Muslims
mm,
or Islamic people. I don't have a hatred against anybody. It's about love and respect to all people, regardless of. And when did I do that cultural immersion project? It was in 2017 or 2018. So you're talking
mm,
about from 2000 to 2002 to 2018. What is that? That's about 26 years of hatred and hatred in my heart and dislike. And today I absolutely, man, like I literally have lost friends, and I have had relationships damaged because I
mm,
advocate for people who are black, white, Chinese, Applejack, who are the minority. I advocate for everybody, regardless
mm,
if you're Hindu, Muslim, woman, child, um,
mm,
doesn't matter. Like I advocate for everybody and anybody because it's love for the human species.
mm, mm. Thank you, Kevin. I love that. You brought up so many beautiful points in there. I really was thinking about Brene Brown's research. She has this quote of people are hard to hate close up, so lean in. This idea that we lean away from getting to know people because of those biases, those preconceived notions, those assumptions that we're making about people based on the cultural narrative, often just that you pointed out. Whether it's the religious doctrine, whether it's the media, whatever it is, we have people constantly telling us what we're supposed to believe. But you being willing to challenge that and say, you know what, I'm going to form my own opinion. I'm going to lean in, I'm going to learn, I'm going to be open and curious, which I think curiosity is the antidote to fear in my mind. Rather than being afraid of what could happen, it's what could happen. It's that activating that curiosity, and I think that's so beautiful and important. And I think something you really touched on here that's worth calling out is in that fear of someone's going to get ahead, someone's going to take something from me, and you said maybe it's not even mine to begin with. I think that also calls up the notion of identity. How closely identified with these certain components of our upbringing, with who we are, how closely identified are we and how attached are we to that thing? Because what I have found to be true, and I'm curious about you, the more closely I attach my identity, my worth, my value to a particular component of who I am, not the whole thing, but whether it's my intelligence or my beauty or whatever it is, the more I attach to it, like my race, for instance, then the the more offended I become if it feels like someone is attacking that aspect. They might be making some offhand comment, but if it touches a part of us that feels like our character or identity is coming under attack, then that to our brain feels exactly like a physical attack. It feels like we're getting attacked by the saber-toothed tiger. And so for me, I'd be curious about your experience with this. For me, it's really been an exercise in letting go of attachment to those identities. Rather than saying I'm I identify as a ethnically white person, but instead of getting really attached to that, like I'm white, it's, oh, I'm a person who happens to have this type of skin. It's, I'm a woman, but I'm a human being who happens to have this type of body, who happens to be a woman. But I'm not ascribing my value, I'm not ascribing my worth, my ability to live to those particular aspects of identity. So I'm curious what kind of work you've done there.
Well, that is a great question, and I love what Ruben says. Ruben, you haven't met him yet. He's another person who's been a huge part of this podcast, right? I love what he says. I can let my light shine and help you to get yours to shine too. I can even help
Mm,
your light to continue burning and shining. I don't
mm,
have to put you down or put yours out. I don't have to put mine down, put mine out either, right? Um,
mm,
and so I think you're right. I can let my values and beliefs and all this determine every single thing about my whole life. Uh, and if I act on that and stay in that little bubble, um, I damage relationships with people. I remove myself from, you know, society as a whole, right?
mm,
And if I detach myself and say, okay, you know what? I got my values, you got yours. Yeah, how can we come together as a unique whole to be
mm,
able to put, leave this world in a better place than what we found it? I don't have to, just say, oh my God, this, that, and the third, and so on and so forth, and then not become acclimated to you.
mm,
We're all here, for one another. We're social creatures. Even if you're a introvert, we still need people to be able to help us survive as a species.
mm,
Think about it. An introvert, regardless of where they work, they still got to deal with somebody. They still got
mm,
to get a paycheck of some sort. They have to deal with people, and I really do think it is about trying to detach myself from allowing my belief systems, my values, and everything, determining and dictating to me what I should believe, what I need to believe, what I have to believe, what I must believe, right? And
mm,
because those are self-imposed limitations, as I like to say. My belief as a just that and a third, so on and so forth, limits me in life. And so when I take that attachment off, open up my world view. And one of the things that makes me mad is, when we look at the Buddhist monks and them walking from Fort Worth, Texas over to DC, one of the most beautiful experiences in the history of the US as far as spiritual, religious ideals. They got in Georgia, and part of what happened in Georgia, you have people who were Christian, right, holding signs and trying to tell them you need to repent and believe in Jesus, and you don't need to be Buddhist anymore. And it's like, why? Why?
mm,
What does that accomplish? You are
mm,
making yourself look like an idiot on social media in front of everybody. Why not allow the Buddhist monks to be Buddhist monks and do what they do because it's
mm,
part of their culture and their belief system, and just support them? Okay, whether they're not, even if they're not a Christian, that's okay. That's not part of their belief system, right? They have a right to believe what they want to believe, and so do you, right? And that's really what it boils down to. I think, anyways, is literally, I have a right, so do you. Just because I have a right doesn't mean that you're wrong. And if it bothers me that much, then my ego can easily say, you have a right to be wrong, and so do
Hmm.
I.
I love that. I have a right, and you can be wrong, and I can be wrong. We can all have rights and be wrong. I love that. I think, it's really interesting, Kevin. I feel like what you talked about with fear, I feel like fear really comes in because it's like fear tells us that it wants to protect us, right? It tells us that it has our best interests at heart. But you said something that I imagine fear is like closing down the possibilities. It's it's saying I don't know if I can handle the openness. Maybe I don't know how to live in a world where people are allowed to believe whatever they want if it's different than mine, because maybe I'm kind of afraid that my belief system isn't secure. If I don't feel grounded in it, then anything outside of me might shake my fear, might shake my foundation. So I really had this image as you were talking of fear kind of closing down, almost like putting blinders on us, like a horse in a race where we can't see what's to the left or right because we're afraid of what will happen, that fear of the unknown that you said. But if we allow fear to drive those decisions, to drive our actions, what I like to say is that the energy behind the action is what creates the outcome. So even if we act from a place of fear to avoid a particular outcome, I believe we're more likely to create that outcome because it was the fear that was in the driver's seat. Whereas if we choose to let love, compassion, generosity be in the driver's seat, then we're much more likely to create situations that have an outcome of love, of compassion, of generosity because it didn't come from a place of fear. This whole idea that we can use fear to eliminate fear, I like to say is like using a hammer to say, I'm going to destroy all the hammers in the world. But that is the falsity of that is self-evident when you say it like a hammer, because we can't use a hammer to destroy all hammers, because then we would still have that hammer left. And so there's got to be something else. If you think about that Einstein quote, right? We can't solve our problems with the same type of thinking that created them. So there has to be something outside of or zoomed out, a different perspective to take. So instead of letting fear drive us to say, oh, I'm afraid of the unknown, or I'm afraid of feeling a certain way, I'm afraid of someone thinking something about me, how can we recognize that we're never going to get away from that thing that we fear if we let fear be in the driver's seat behind our actions and decisions?
No, I think you're right, and let's take it one step further. I think our ultimate goal in life is to detach ourselves from the outcomes. I don't own the outcomes. You know, just like I got in my car
Exactly.
yesterday, to drive to work and slid down a hill and tore it up. My goal was to go to work. The outcome
Hmm.
was I had to put my car in the shop yesterday, right? And do the insurance claims and all that. You know, and it's okay. It is what it is, right? But we have to detach ourselves from the outcomes of life because I don't own the outcomes. I can't determine the outcomes. I can't predict the outcomes. I can just say, hey, to the best of my ability, I'm gonna do this. This is supposed to be the outcome. At least this is what I hope. So on and so forth, right? And so, what if we detach ourselves from said outcome? Then I get to live in a little bit more freedom because if the outcome doesn't go the way I want it to go, it is what it is, right? I don't, I don't have to get wrapped up with fear of this or anger of this or, you know, it's just life experience. And so,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, how have you detached from the outcome? I have my own practice of detaching from the outcome, so I'm curious to hear how you've gotten there.
So for me, I think, again, I'm an existentialist, right? So it's all about having an experience of life. Experience in life teaches us things. So, for an example, when I went to Seattle, I tried to cross the border into Canada. Well, I did the research. You can carry a firearm across the border. You can carry certain things, this, that, and the third. So I'm like, all right, cool. Got my piece on me. I just need a 60-day permit, this, that, and the third. Well, come to find out, they denied me. Why? My firearm is not the firearm I had on me was not an 11-inch barrel. So that was negative. So they denied me for that. I had some stuff on me that I haven't used in freaking forever, CBD, and they said it was considered carrying drugs across the border. And I'm like, I spent money on, like, I spent bukus of money, not this gas station crap. But I spent literally, like, I would spend 150 bucks on a container of this, that, and third. Like, it was quality grade stuff, right? And so, but I haven't used it in forever. So they were like, yeah, it's considered drugs. I'm like, hey, you can destroy it. Don't even worry about it. Like, I don't use it anyways. Um, I'm considered a felon in the country of Canada, which is new for me. And I'm like, oh, it's very interesting. Okay. And I was held at that facility at the border for 3 hours, an hour and a half on the Canadian side, an hour and a half on the U.S. side, and they thought everybody thought I was a felon, but I had to clear up my record and all of that, so that got taken care of in the immigration system. So, but it was an experience that I was able to walk away with and be like, you know what? I was afraid of going to jail and spending time in federal prison, and at the same time, that experience shows me now that when I go to the border or any border for that matter, I know or have an idea of what to expect. Don't know the full outcome, but I know what to expect for the most
Mm,
part. I got an idea of what that experience might or might not look like. And hey, it is what it is. It's not illegal to go to a border or point of entry of any country. It's not illegal to do it. And so having that experience allows me to detach from,
mm,
right, and it allows me the freedom to be able to go through this journey. And it was a journey, right? It's a journey. People, thought I was crazy and living bipolar wise. And you saw me on social media driving from here to Seattle. Absolutely enjoyed it. People thought that I was bipolar and living in a manic state, and I'm like, why? Because I'm driving cross country. It's a
mm,
dream of mine.
mm,
God, but you don't need to do that. You just need to fly. No, it's a dream of mine to drive cross country,
mm,
coast to coast. Then
mm,
they got mad. He said I was manic because I was sleeping in my car. No, are you gonna give me 150 bucks to sleep in a hotel? Well, no, I ain't gonna do that. All right then. I want to keep my finances as cheap as possible, and I can sleep in my car free of charge. I got my
mm,
girlfriend with me. She protects me if need be. I am okay. And so, but having that experience showed me that hey, I can do a cross country travel, sleep in the car, take a shower at a truck stop. I'm not, the outcome is I saved money, but that wasn't the goal because I didn't know. I've never done it
mm,
before, so I had an experience.
mm,
So when I
mm,
live in the ideals of existentialism, I take the predictions off. I take the outcome should be or needs to be blase
mm,
blase, and I live in a state of existence where I get to experience.
mm. That's it, right? That's life, is that experience, that presence, right? What I heard was presence, being truly present to the experience. And I think that, in my own practice of detaching from the outcome, I think of it as giving our power away, because like you said, we can't control the outcome. We don't own those outcomes. And so I'm giving my power away every time I allow my happiness, my joy, my sense of worth or accomplishment to be dependent on something that I ultimately don't have control over, something I don't own. And so for me, it really felt like ultimately setting myself up for failure if I said, I can only be happy if XYZ happens. I can only be joyful or strong or excited or whatever it is based on these circumstances or these outcomes. That was just setting me up for failure. And so now, by doing that work of detaching from the outcome, now it's quite the opposite. Now it's no matter what the circumstances are, I can create joy. I can be excited. I can find something that I'm learning, something that I'm experiencing that makes the whole thing really worth it. And so that has felt a lot like reclaiming my power. So love that we share that practice.
Right. No, absolutely. And, you know, it's one of those things. Do I let society tell me how I need to do and what I must live and how I must live and how I must believe? Or do I let this person tell me how I must believe and need to think and this, that, and the third? And, that's what's wrong with, I think, society. I think we've gone astray in society because it says women should think like this and women should be this,
Mm,
relationships should do this and should go this way, should look like this. Uh, Religion should do this. If you're Christian, you can only do this. If not, you're doing this. And it's like we put on these blinders in society and in
mm,
life. And are we really being authentic? Are we living
mm,
authentically?
mm,
Because if I'm allowing you to tell me what I must believe, need to think, need to do, need to this, that, and a third, am I really living up to my standards, or am I living up to what you say my standard is? That's what I love about my employer. And I'm not going to mention their, where I work at on here, but I will say this much: working Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Saturday and Sunday, I pretty much get to do what I want to do as far as like group therapy, things like that, and it's part of my strengths is group therapy. It's part of my strengths in certain areas of the field. So my employer allows me that freedom to really kind of come in here and do
mm,
whatever of play to my strengths basically and provide
mm,
quality patient care. And on Mondays, Monday through Friday we have a certain type of deal, and on Mondays, is I get less freedom, but I still get to do, it's still about patient care, right? And
mm.
so that's what I like about where I currently my current employer. They're phenomenal. I absolutely have nothing but the utmost respect for them. Um, and it is about, for if we get that freedom to do certain things in our prospective careers and career fields, we're being able to live authentically doing what we enjoy.
Absolutely. It's so funny. I was studying recently. Are you familiar with Rene Descartes and the phrase, I think, therefore I am?
This much familiar, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, the idea is I think therefore I am, this notion of creating the most, like, what is the most irreducible aspect of human consciousness? And for Rene Descartes, he said, I think, therefore I know I exist because I'm a thinking being. And what I thought was really interesting was I kind of went down this little historical rabbit hole to understand, why did that phrase take such hold? Because what I perceive is that today the pendulum has swung really far in this direction of, we only respect our thoughts, we only respect the logical, rational mind. We're leaving a lot of wisdom on the table to have that freedom, to have that experience.
Uh-oh.
It's this idea of,
I think you're muted.
curious, like, why did people buy into this so much? Why, when
Yeah, we're having
planets.
hold
Oh,
on.
can you hear me?
Now I can.
How about now? Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. I thought I was in do not disturb. So basically, with Rene Descartes and this whole idea of I think, therefore I am, I was curious, like, why did we let go of the wisdom of the planets, of the seasons, of our connection? And if you look at in the 1600s when he came up with that phrase, it was basically, we'd lived through famine, we had feudalism, there were power struggles, and things didn't feel very stable or secure in the world. And so people latched onto this phrase of I think therefore I am, because it felt like we didn't have power, we didn't have stability. And so if we could come back and say, well, I'm thinking, therefore I have some sense of autonomy, of freedom in myself. And it's really interesting to see how the pendulum has swung really far in that direction, where now we've actually created prisons for ourselves in that thinking mind by saying that everything has to be logical and rational. I don't give any sort of credence to my emotions, to my intuition, to the wisdom of the planets and the seasons and our connection to all of existence. And so I think that's really interesting. And so the question I'll leave, and then I'll turn it over to you. Thanks for playing, Kevin, letting me interview you today. Is, really like, what's possible if we loosen our hold and our attachment on the thinking mind? What might be possible if we lean into creativity, into freedom, into emotions and intuition, into possibility? What could be possible?
I go back to thinking about the guy, and I cannot remember his name. But he said he was the first theorist, one of them, to say, who challenged the idea that the sun revolves around the earth. And he
Mm,
said, no, the earth revolves around the sun. I forget who it was. Everybody chastised him, critiqued him, said, no, you're wrong. You're just a big dummy. You're just a big idiot.
mm,
And he stuck by his beliefs. And so now, fast forward 2,000 years, actually longer than that, much longer than that, I think. Uh, we actually know now that in almost every galaxy that I have looked at, the planets revolve around the sun, whatever sun that might be. And
mm,
so, if we reduce or loosen our attachments to our ideals, I think we allow ourselves to grow and adapt cognitively and behaviorally. I used to argue with Ruben, you read the book The Secret, and he always talked about, I think, therefore I am, and I typically become what I think, blah blah blah. And I'm like, dude, you're wrong. You're forgetting the behavioral piece of it. Well, fast forward now, I actually believe what he says and what he talks about, because if I'm thinking it, therefore I'm doing it, right? The
mm,
chances of, and if I'm not doing it, the chances of me doing it is pretty high, right? Um, so that's been my experiences. I have to, loosen the bolts and the nuts and allow myself. It's almost like putting together a house, right? The house breathes. It's got to expand and shrink and expand and shrink.
mm,
Empire State Building's the same way, right? It shrinks in the wintertime, it expands in the summertime. And so it's built to
mm,
expand and to shrink, right? And I have
mm,
to allow myself to be the same way. I have to, or
mm,
am I really truly living? Am I allowing myself, to live? Or am I still in that bubble of, all Muslims are bad people? Doesn't matter which Muslim you are, doesn't matter if you're from, whatever, is Israel or whatever, Saudi Arabia, it doesn't matter.
mm,
All Muslims are bad folks. Uh, and even if I, even taken other to other races, all black people are criminals, or all women are just scum of the earth, and they're lower than men.
mm,
Um, and I think our goal in society is to not let those things take hold and to challenge every piece of that.
mm,
Because if I challenge the societal ideals, I push society forward.
mm,
Now, I still think, let's take it a step further. I don't think it's my job to determine what is good or what is bad.
mm,
For the most part, is racism bad? Absolutely. Is looking at people as scum of the earth bad? Absolutely. I don't need to live in those ideals. But for
mm,
me, fighting for the rights of Muslims, just like for the rights of whites and blacks and children and
mm,
LGBTQ populations, I'm helping society to push forward past
mm.
old ideals. Um, and so I think that's really where the ultimate goal is. And who said that we were done yet? That's my question to you. I know we've been on here for about an hour. I mean, I'm enjoying the questioning here.
Oh, you like it? You like having the tables turned, huh?
Yeah, it's interesting. This is the first time the tables have ever been turned.
See, opening yourself up to new experiences. I love it.
Right.
Well, I think something that's really interesting in what you just said was um, that made me think of we often don't necessarily think about the impact that those beliefs have on us as individuals. We spend a lot of time in conversation thinking about those who are impacted by the beliefs, those who are marginalized, those who, what is the impact on them? But I can speak to my own evolution of consciousness and my own path is, when I was holding on to fear or judgment of a whole group of people, not only was I missing out on beautiful connected experiences, beautiful friendships and relationships that wouldn't have been possible if I wasn't willing to let go of those ideals, but I love that quote it's about revenge, but it's something like revenge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That's how I really feel about judgment and resentment as well. It's this tool that we think we're going to hurt other people or that we're going to feel better by judging, by holding ourselves in a position above others, whatever it is. But really, it hurts us because if I assert that I am better than somebody else, then that means I inherently believe in a paradigm where other people are better than me. And so, even though I'm trying to make myself feel better by asserting dominance or feeling better judging others, that means that there's somebody that I'm going to judge is above me, is better than me. And so, why not loosen our hold on that ideal and come to that recognition that we are all humans, just as you've been saying, we're all humans, we're all equal, we all deserve love and care and attention and all of that. So, I think that's something that's often overlooked is the impact that those beliefs have on us as individuals.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And one of the things I try to do, when we start thinking about, you know, the, these challenges, these biases, these life experiences, or look at the idea that at the core of it all, right? I mean, you can say that, yeah, you're a game developer, you're this person, you're that person, you're an entrepreneur times two, times three. Same thing with me. The fact that I'm a therapist, you're a Caucasian female, I'm a Caucasian male. You're probably my age, I think, if I remember correctly. We're in the same generation, right? Put all these labels on each of us, and I can put the same labels on people who are in prison. They're criminals, they're inmates, or this or that. Doesn't matter. Whatever the crime is, drugs, sex, whatever, does not matter, right? I'm not speaking on the negative impacts of their behavior if they are sitting behind the walls. Okay, I'm not condoning or in agreement with whatever they done. I'm not saying any of that. And I'm not saying whether they're innocent or not. I'm not saying that. I'm speaking on very broad level here. Uh, Same thing with the presidents of the U.S. or any country. Same thing with senators and people in power. Same thing with CEOs. We throw all these labels on each of us. At the core of it all, we are each a human being. We each have been wrong and we each have been right. We each, if you cut one another, right? If I cut myself, right? If I cut myself, I'm gonna bleed red, right? Same thing, as anybody else. Um, you know, I make mistakes, I get things right in life. I have emotions just like everybody else. I think just like everybody else. And that's at the core of who we are. And if I can think about that and live in that moment, I am allowed to express and to build those authentic relationships with people. And I see a lot of the times where people are in positions and it's like, well, hey, I'm in this position and it's going to say, you're going to do exactly what I say and this, that, and the third. And it's like, if you want people to change, if you want society to move forward, we need to be able to get to a level. Doesn't matter if you're a nurse, a therapist, a CEO, a doctor, or a nurse practitioner, or PA. I mean, I think it's about getting to a place where we can build relationships with one another I'm not saying that patients are always going to be right or wrong or anything like that, and that the medical doctor doesn't live up to certain things and they can't make certain decisions that, regardless of patient desire. Like, I'm not saying that at all, but I think if we were to get to a point in society where we can build relationships with people genuinely, where it's at the core, I'm a human being just like you, we're able to reduce that divide that we have socially. Um, and I think that's part of what why, and I'm not going to say I'm very successful with it, but I've received very high compliments and graces from the folks that I serve, because
Mm,
a lot of the people will say, you look like you sound like you've been through things. You act like you've been through things, and it's just in me. I My personality doesn't change whether I got a suit and tie
mm,
or whether I don't have a suit and tie.
mm,
Society says you're a therapist, just that and the third. That's what my board says. Okay, great, and doesn't make me no better than the dude who's freaking homeless living under the damn bridge over yonder in Raleigh, Winston Salem, Greensboro. Make me no damn better. Okay, and
mm,
it's just a freaking title. I'm a human being. How much dope I did back in the day?
mm,
This person who's homeless might be doing drugs. Okay, and there's no difference.
mhm,
Look, regardless of that drink or that drug is just one arm lengths away.
mm,
No difference.
mm,
And once if I pick it up, then I'm selling everything I got: computers, technology, equipment. I'm gonna be homeless too.
mm,
I mean, it doesn't matter. I've never seen a recreational crack smoker.
mm,
you know, and it's really keeping it that simple. It's literally keeping it that simple, that we all make mistakes. We all do things right. We're a human being. I have the same feelings you have, and I have thought processes just like you.
yes,
Doesn't matter about the genital
absolutely.
under the clothing. It doesn't
Mhm,
matter if you got breasts, no breasts, gonads, or whatever the women call it. I don't know what women call it, but the vagina. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think it's so beautiful because you're speaking to something, Kevin, that's so universal, right? Our universality in the human experience, and that when we boil down to it, many of us, most of us, I don't know if I'd say all, I'm sure there's a segment of the population that it doesn't apply to, but we all want many of the same things. We need the same things. We need those relationships. We need love. We need care. We need resources. And, I think that a mindset of scarcity, a belief that there's not enough to go around, I think is um, a belief that has become very pervasive in our society. We're constantly trying to take resources from one country to another, from one company to another, one person to another. It's all these fractals that extrapolate out. But we think about, yeah, that scarcity. I need to take from you so that I have something. But what I hear and what you're saying is that remembering that we are in this together. We are all on the same, some sort of level playing field, whether or not our circumstances are different, our backgrounds different. We landed, dare I say, in this game at a different position. But something that you're really speaking to from my own belief system is that everybody's a mirror, right? Everybody is giving us an invitation, an opportunity to learn something about ourselves. And the judgment, the hatred that I direct towards other people is really just a manifestation of the judgment and the hatred I'm directing inward towards myself. So I was curious to tap into your experience that you spoke on, your cultural project of going to really integrate with Muslims and study Islam. Did you notice a shift in your own internal world and how you think about yourself or how you feel about yourself as a result of that?
I feel like during the moment, uh, you know, as I sit back and look at it, I felt conflicted, confused, emotionally deranged, emotionally, cognitively challenged, and I think, and that was during the moment, because it's like, okay, well, hold on, what am I seeing right now, right? Because you go from women are completely battered and abused and controlled and everything else. And it's like, but what I saw was men and the children doing everything, and the woman is just sitting there.
Mm,
That's not control, not my definition of control. And
mm,
it's like, it's very traditional. Uh, I mean, I've interviewed families where the man will work 2, 3 jobs, the woman stays home, takes care of the family. And it's like you
mm,
don't see that in Western civilization. You see that
mm,
in a lot of Eastern and ancient cultures, Native people, you know, Hindus, Muslims, very Eastern beliefs and practices, and because it's very collectivistic. And so it really showed me what research actually between the two different civilizations, Western versus Eastern, is, as far as like the differences. It really brought it out. Um, and I do. Did I fully come to this authentic ideal, or authenticity ideal? No. I mean, I've talked to people, during that process, and they were like, "Well, you know why I don't like Muslims?" And this is a Christian preacher, right? And he was like, "Do you know why I don't like Muslims? Because they try to convert you." And I'm thinking to myself, "Well, damn, dude, don't Christians try to convert people too? Shit, what's the damn difference?" It's like,
mm-hmm,
listen to yourself. And it goes back to what that doctor said. I mean, we're so afraid of our children learning about LGBTQ and what's in the textbook on the history of that, but we're willing to send them to church and let them learn about Sodom and Gomorrah, or whatever that story is, where
mm-hmm,
somebody turned into a freaking pile of salt or sand or whatever. I don't know, but it's like,
mm-hmm,
we learn about murder and blood and guts in the Bible, but yet we can't send them to school and let them learn about, oh my God, this is the genitals, this is the breasts. This medicine will enlarge the man's breasts if he takes it, potentially.
mm-hmm,
Uh, we don't want our folks learning about that. Like, like there's no deference. And I've noticed that change since a lot of that, right? Since, and it's continuing to remain in a place where I am open and being accepting of that place. I'm not right. I have ideals and ideas and beliefs. Doesn't make me right in the end all be all it all. The
mm-hmm,
world revolves around me all type deal.
mm. Yeah, but I think you're highlighting it that everybody is a mirror. We each have something we can learn from others, and the thing that we are judging in other people, to your example of, oh, they try to get people to convert, and it's like, well, we're doing the same thing, right? So seeing that it is an opportunity to look in the mirror, to rather than trying to control what somebody else is doing with their actions, if we're feeling some discomfort based on what we're seeing in someone else's behaviors, that's where we can go inward and say, huh, maybe I want to change my own behaviors because maybe this doesn't actually align to my values, to my ideals. And so that's where we can really take back the power, take back our control to say, I am the only thing that I can control. So I'm going to use everything outside of me as data, as information about how am I aligning with my ideals and my values? How am I not? And if I'm out of alignment, where do I need to change in order to bring myself into more of that alignment? Because I think that it's that alignment, that authentic alignment, as you were talking to, that creates our ability to be present, to be in that experience of life, because we're not constantly wondering and thinking and searching. As we become more aligned in ourselves, we have less we need to figure out because we're
Mm.
already in it. And so that's really what enables us to be present in our life. So I love it. Thank you so much, Kevin. This has been so fun. I'm going to turn it over to you to bring us home. Any final questions or thoughts that are coming up for you?
Wow. Man, this has been absolutely phenomenal. And you know what? I want to get you scheduled again like in 3 days so we can continue this.
We'll just hang out. We'll keep chatting, and whoever wants to join can join in.
Right, right. No, absolutely, absolutely. Oh wow, wow. Oh man, my my thought processes are all over the board here. So, where can people go to sign up and be on the wait list for your
Thank you for
for
bringing
for
that
y'all's
forward
game?
again, Kevin.
Mm.
Yeah, for the game. So we are hoping to have our open alpha launched in just a couple of months. So we're super close. Things are stabilizing. It's feeling really good. So if you go to astrapuffs.com, Astra like the stars, I'm sure we can put it in the notes, but astrapuffs.com, sign up for our wait list. We're building for iOS first. So you need to be an iPhone user on an iPhone 13 or newer to get access to the first wave of the game because there's a lot of complexity, a lot of tech that we're building. It's not only a game on a mobile phone, which has its complexities, but it's a multiplayer open world game, and we have agentic AI inside of it. So we've really constrained ourselves, but excited to, we've been doing supervised play testing, and we're really excited to see what happens when we open the world to newcomers and we kind of unleash Astras into the world. So astrapuffs.com, sign up for the waitlist, follow us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, you can find us.
Wow. And what is one thing that you hope people take away from this?
From this conversation.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm. Hmm. I think for me, something that's really coming through is just that reminder to loosen my hold, to remember that, yes, being in the uncertainty and in the unknown can be uncomfortable because by definition, it is uncertain and unknown. But by recognizing that, loosening our hold on the attachment of trying to control the outcomes, of trying to control other people, it's actually loosening that hold that creates more peace. So, loosening our attachment to identity, attachment to outcome, I think that's um, really where I hope people take some value.
Absolutely. No, I definitely agree. I think it is, that's where I think my ultimate goal for today and tomorrow and the week after that is going to continue to
Mm.
remain, to not allow society to tell me what I need to think, believe, say, so on and so forth. And I will continue to be the therapist that does not wear the suit and tie. Right. Oh, wow. And where can people find you if they want to bring you on as a guest, if they want to, maybe talk to you, maybe bring you on as a, or hire you as a mentor, mentee, what have you,
Mm.
or even, try to do some game creation, game development with you, including Sony, if Sony wants to get a hold of you.
If you're listening, Sony,
Right.
come find me. Yeah, I would say if people are interested in leadership embodiment coaching and working with me, if they're interested, I do keynotes, I do panels, I do podcasts as well. And if you're interested in being part of creating the magic of Astro Puffs, I would say the best place to find me these days is on LinkedIn. Search for Carissa Carbon, you'll find me. That's where I'm active most these days.
I love it. I love it. Do you have any final questions for me?
Hmm. What's bringing you joy today, Kevin?
Being able to wake up and say, "Hey, I don't know what today's going to be. I don't know what today's going to bring, but it's going to be an experience." Since I opened my two eyes this morning, I have to go through this day until whenever either I croak by EOD or go to sleep sometime today. That's what's bringing me joy.
I
Yep.
love it. I love it. I love yeah, just I'm arms wide open to the experience, whatever happens. I think that's a great way to be. And I'm doing my
Yep.
best to live that way as well. So thank you.
Absolutely. Let's continue to be authentic. Right. Folks, y'all heard it today. All right, by this amazing, amazing young lady. She got to interview me. I feel kind of vulnerable now. Feel vulnerable, but it was an amazing, awesome, awesome experience. Uh, And so this is not the end of her coming on. Okay. This is the start of a beautiful, amazing relationship. This is the second time. She's got about another 10, 15, 20, I don't know, 40 visits. So
Let's do it.
thank thank you. I do appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Really appreciate it. Appreciate all the work you're doing. Appreciate all the ways you're impacting all the lives that you intersect with, and appreciate everybody listening, for playing along and being part of the journey. Hopefully, you're taking something that resonates. And yeah, feel free to reach out and continue the conversation. But I'm looking forward to next time, Kevin.
Absolutely, 100%. So listen, we're on my end of life.